the contractors or agents would always want to associate with political actors so that they gain favors and won't be hit hard on inquiries. If members of PACs are not vigilant enough, they may be influenced to disrupt or divert inquiries to the advantage of those that have been involved in looting. Members of the PACs must discharge their mandate without ill will, avoid being prejudicial or judgmental, and only deal with facts and seek to inquire on facts and not on personalities. It is always very important to avoid relying on unverified or unverifiable information, as this will likely lead to serious problems and may bring the committee into disrepute. Search for the truth always and avoid trying to use PACs to settle political scores using lies, possible lies, half-truths, and any other thing that is not allowed. Only true and correct information is what PAC needs in its parliamentary work. So don't use public accounts committees to fight political battles. Discharge mandate in a non-partisan manner. Every politician is primarily driven by political affiliation, and it is this affiliation that brings a member to parliament. It is, however, peremptory for PAC members to undergo the process of de-rolling when they are doing PAC work. This de-rolling technique is important as it aids in the production of strong and credible work, as it allows members the distance to view and do their work objectively. Nobody must be able to tell political party to which a PAC member belongs, whilst they are discharging their PAC mandate. In PAC, members are not coming to support or defend party positions, but to defend the people through monitoring and interrogating how the national resources are being channeled and utilized. Discharge your mandate independently. Other committees of Parliament or Parliament administration must never be allowed to determine and interfere with PAC work. The work of Public Accounts Committee must be informed by the audit reports and other source documents, and must never be dictated or directed by other external factors. This independence is also confirmed through parliamentary administrations availing the necessary resources to allow the committee to do necessary value for money visits, inspections, and inquiries that are necessary to discharge the mandate fully. There are instances where public accounts committees may require collaboration from other standing committees of Parliament, and these joint meetings must not be hindered or interfered with. Public accounts committees may need to work conjunctively and in complementarity with those other committees, but without allowing itself to be compromised or diluted. Let me now look at the challenges. Now, despite the fact that Sadcopac has achieved a lot in the past 20 years of its existence, there are still some challenges which provide an opportunity for further improvements in the future. Some of these challenges include, but not limited to, what I will talk about. One, not all SADC states have confirmed their membership to Sadcopac. The Democratic Republic of Congo, for example, the Comoros and Madagascar are yet to confirm their membership. That is one challenge that we are experiencing. We also have a challenge of transfer pricing regulations and illicit financial flows. The role of PACs in public debt management oversight of extractive industries, procurement, and state contracts oversight, the role of PACs and similar committees on climate change, the SADC model law on public financial management, the role of Sadcopac and SADC PF in public financial management. Mr. Speaker, let me conclude and say that Sadcopac plays a crucial role in empowering public accounts committees and oversight bodies to promote transparency, accountability, and good governance. Together, we can build strong institutions and ensure the responsible use of public resources for the benefit of our citizens. Mr. Chair, allow me to also now proceed and talk to the issue of the resolutions that were made in the Gaborone or Botswana AGM, and just look at how other countries have attended to these resolutions. I guess as we proceed, each member country represented here will briefly explain how Sadcopac activities and recommendations have improved their operations. But I have a few from a few countries here that I would like to share with you. For example, Zimbabwe. On addressing the resolution talking about members should strengthen existing procedures on the appointment of persons to serve on the various public investigative wings, let's see how they implemented that. The Constitution of Zimbabwe adequately provides for Parliament's involvement in the appointment of persons to independent commissions. Parliament conducts interviews and submits a list of nominees to the President from which appointments are made. For example, Zimbabwe implemented the recommendation of Sadcopac to subdivide the committee into 3 subcommittees, and this has helped improve efficiency. Resolution 2, enhance structured collaborative relationships with institutions that complement the work of PAC. This is how it was implemented. Relations with the institutions are now sound. The Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission follows the work of the PAC with keen interest and responds to the committee's recommendation that relate to requests for it to conduct investigations on certain matters. As we go to Malawi, let's see how they have dealt with this resolution on member countries where applicable through an appropriate consultative process should strengthen existing procedures on the appointment of persons to serve on the various public investigative wings. The implementation, one of the amendments that necessitated the review of the Public Audit Act in 2018 was to insert therein clauses that changed how an Auditor General can be appointed. That is, the Public Appointment Committee of Parliament is now heavily involved, and the person has to be recommended by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Malawi. Now, Parliament, through Public Accounts Committee, is also involved in the appointment of controlling officers of investigative wings. That is, the Director of Public Office of Declaration of Assets, the Ombudsman, the Director of the Anti-Corruption Bureau of Malawi. Now let's proceed to South Africa and see how South Africa is faring, Mr. Chairman. Resolution. SADC countries that have not enacted the access to information legislation should do so in order to enhance the prudent use of public resources by both state and private sectors. Implementation. South Africa has in place the Promotion of Access to Information Act of 2000, which gives effect to the constitutional right of access to any information held by the state and any information that is held by another person and that is required for the exercise or protection of any rights, and to provide for matters connected therewith. Let us look at Resolution 2. Member countries, where applicable, through an appropriate consultative process, should strengthen existing procedures on the appointment of persons to serve on the various public investigative wings. Let us see how South Africa has implemented this one. The committees of the National Assembly are responsible for shortlisting, interviewing, and recommendation of, amongst others, board members, Auditor General, and the Public Protector to the President. In some cases, the ministers responsible for certain portfolios appoint board members who serve in state-owned enterprises. Another resolution that says SAIS should be mandated to conduct audits in extractive industries. And this is how South Africa implements this one. The South Africa Revenue Services is responsible for tax collection and reports annually to Parliament. Now let us look at where the chairman of this association comes from. Resolution that talks to member countries should constitute subcommittees to specifically deal with outstanding issues on the recommendations of the executive. This is how they implement that one in Zambia. Standing Order number 183 of the National Assembly, Standing Orders 2021, provides for the establishment of subcommittees. However, a subcommittee may, subject to the Speaker's approval, be established as a main committee. Now, let us look at the second resolution. Member countries, where applicable, through an appropriate consultative process, should establish, should strengthen existing procedures on the appointment of persons to serve on various public investigative wings. Let's see how the chairman does it in his country. The appointment of persons to serve on the commissions of various public investigative wings, such as the Anti-Corruption Commission, the Drug Enforcement Commission, is consultative. All the nominated persons undergo parliamentary ratification. Additionally, the recruitment of staff in the respective is undertaken by various relevant service commissions. Therefore, the matter is resolved. Let us look at the last resolution that says Parliament must advocate for the creation of parliamentary budget offices in their parliaments, as well as increase funding to strengthen their operation. This is how they do it in Zambia. The National Assembly of Zambia has established the Parliamentary Budget Office with support from the European Union as a department under the office of the clerk. Therefore, the matter is resolved. Mr. Chairman, let me come to the conclusion by looking at future directions of, to focus on capacity building and sharing of knowledge. We want to expand partnerships with regional and international organizations. We also want to embrace technology or technological advancements for more effective oversight. And we also want to address emerging challenges in public financial management and oversight. Mr. Chairman, this marks the end of my presentation. I thank you.
Thank you very much, General Secretary. Now that we have gotten to understand the role of Sadcopac and its perception on what we as Public Accounts Committees are expected to do, let's get to hear the experience here in Tanzania. So I would like to call the presenter from the National Assembly of Tanzania to come forward to make the presentation on how the Parliament and the Public Accounts Committee of Tanzania conduct business in terms of oversight.
Good afternoon, everyone. Once again, my name is Geoffrey Dufonsimwambe. I'm the Member of Parliament representing Masas Town, but also I'm serving as a member of the Public Accounts Committee with the National Assembly of the United Republic of Tanzania. I'm going to present to you the rules of procedures of our Public Accounts Committee. Sorry, they're fixing it, but what I'm going to do actually is to take you through the way PAC Tanzania conducts its business. We may have different systems in our different countries, but we believe that as oversight committees, we have the similar objectives and probably methodology. On behalf of the chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee, Honorable Nagi Kaboyoka, and my fellow members of the Public Accounts Committee, I can now comfortably take you through our presentation. But before I embark onto it, I would just to remind you that we are members of Parliament. We are representing people. And since the structure of our economies in SADC is almost similar, I being an economist working for the central bank, but also I was in charge of the EAC and SADC, of course, the Indian Ocean Rim, AGOA, and EU. I've been engaging with SADC countries many times, so I know the structure of our economies are similar, and we have almost similar issues or challenges that our people are facing. And mostly lack of resources. We do not have enough resources to cater for the need of our people. And as we've said in our Sadcopac objectives, that we were fostering to ensure that we attain people's expectations. And people's expectations is to have better life, is to have a kind of living. So we are indebted as countries to make sure that we make available enough resources to finance different development activities. Now, we have different structures in our economies in terms of making the state works. So there is an executive wing, which is government, but we have parliament to oversee government business, but we have some regulatory institutions, including the national audit offices, who are now serving as the auditors to be collected, whether it's from tax revenue or non-tax revenue, whether it's a loan contracted outside there or it's a grant or some form of guarantees, they are directly to benefit the common people. So what we are doing, spent by the government, is made accountable. I'm going to take you through a number of areas, but I won't be reading them one by one. I'll try to be as short as possible. First of all, the configuration of the Public Accounts Committee. We have different committees in the National Assembly of Tanzania, and previous years we had our committee dealing with the entire range of oversight. But then it was decided later that we can break them into some sectoral areas to focus on some few sectors. As you've heard some of our colleagues introduced here, they are from the public investment committees, which now profit are channeled into government coffers to assist on financing the national budget. But also there is a standing committee to look at those implementation of the national budget of those local government authorities. And we have a dedicated committee for that. And that's why you had some of the members of parliament introduce themselves as members from the local authorities accounts committee. Then the public accounts committee remains the overall oversight body to oversee the central government, where the funds are now collected, sourced and probably expended, and work very closely with the other oversight committees to make sure that we converge into attaining our global objective of overseeing effective implementation of the Public Financial Management Act as a guiding principle to our financial management. We also have the process by which we follow as a country. We have the budget cycle. Every year, the government prepares the budget and table it to the parliament. I think the same is happening to you as well, to your countries. Then the government debates heavily, and we are contributing to the government budget proposal to make sure that major interests of our common people are taken on board in the government budget. And then the bill is appropriated and become a law for implementation. And then in doing that, all the government proposals of the next annual budget plan are aligned to the Public Financial Management Act, which is the guiding principle. But also in making sure that the implementation of the audit departments in each of the ministries, departments, and agencies, supervised by the Internal Auditor General, who serves as an internal auditor. But on the other side, now we have the Controller and the Auditor General, who serves as the external auditor and who works very closely with the Public Accounts Committee. And then we come in now as the Public Accounts Committee by considering reports from the Controller and Auditor General. And we have about 4 types of audit that we're interested in as PAC. So we sometimes ask CAG, our CAG, to do financial audit to see whether the financial rules have been adhered to during the implementation of government projects. But we also have performance audit, and this is especially for institutions which are not for profit making. They need to deliver upon their core functions. For instance, today we have heard about the Tanzania Tourist Board, the Zanzibar Tourist Board, Zanzibar Investment Promotion Agency, the central banks. They're not for profit making. So they need to deliver, and the deliverables to us is the performance of their work, whether they've assisted really the country to achieve its general and specific objectives of developing the country. So we also call for performance audit to be done, but also we have some technical audit reports that we are sometimes requesting from CAG to do, or he does that on its own motion and share them with us. So this is where the technical part of implementation of government projects is coming. So they need to go deeper, whether it's road construction projects, which is, we understand road construction projects are eating a lot of government money, whether we have specific bigger mega projects like us, we have construction of the railway line, SGR, but also we have hydroelectric power dam, which is bigger and it's going to earn us about 2,115 megawatts of electricity. So those kind of projects, they need some technical audit to see whether those technicalities, the technical specifications which were designed have actually been adhered to. And we have seen some weaknesses in some of the reports. But we also have real-time audits, especially for projects who are taking too long, that CAG can come in and do some interim audits in the midway of implementation of the project and give us information where that PSC can consider and probably take some actions to ensure that we do not wait until the end to correct what could be corrected before we come to an end. So this is the tricycle that I spoke about, that the executive is proposing the budget to the parliament, and the parliament is considering and debating on it, and then making improvements, and then appropriate it and take it back to the executive for implementation. And then CAG, as our partner, our stakeholder, very important stakeholder, can come in now to see on a sample basis whether the approved budget has been spent in a manner that is aligned to the public financial management frameworks. Our Public Accounts Committee is headed by a chairperson, and we are very lucky. The chairperson is a lady, you know her very well. She's also serving as a vice chairperson of Sadcopac, Mama Kaboyoka. So thank you very much for your wonderful and outstanding leadership in this. And actually, even the Speaker of the Assembly has always been insisting that this is the committee that should attract interest of the public. And the role of the National Assembly as an overseer or an oversight body of the country is essentially driven by the work of PAC. So the stronger PAC, the stronger the National Assembly. And she actually moderates our business. She always leads the discussions, whether in planning, in preparing for sessions, and trying to, I remember the Secretary General said some of the members of the Parliament could be very vocal, they want results, they want to see some people being sued, but the chair's work is to moderate, is to make sure that we keep cool, we keep calm, and try to manage the situation during the encounter. And the members, our role is essentially to help the chair to achieve the committee's targets, We need also to do research as members, but we need to also read adequately the CAG report, but also other reports that might be important and could be linked well, with the discussion of the day, and to try to be innovative, creative, and sometimes also to go beyond the usual businesses that we've been saying, and to remain focused, always to think of the interest of the public and not ourselves. So we have very credible members of the PAC. And we have very able secretariat, which is facilitating our businesses. We cannot do all the secretarial work, the facilitation, the drafting, and all that, but also to guide us to always remain aligned to the those major governing policy and legal documents in our role of engaging with the stakeholders. So if we make an interview or we do some hearing to either verify the report of the CAG or trying to give a second chance to the auditees, the Secretariat is always the ones who are reminding us on the key provisions, whether it's a parliamentary standing order or the Public Finance Management Act, or if it's the constitutional provisions, or other procurement, the Public Procurement Regulatory Act. So they're the ones who are guiding us to make sure that we are not, going astray and remain focused. So we thank you very much, Secretariat, for that. Before we embark on to doing our business, we must do planning. So you have long and short-term planning. So we know each year, each financial year, we have a minimum of 4 key sessions that we're going to that we normally conduct, and in those 4 sessions, we know which session to do what. So we have that, and then we have short-term planning to actualize now the 4 sessions. So we've been guided by the Secretariat again to make sure that we plan our business very well. But we are not working alone. We need stakeholders. And in this, we've been cooperating with other stakeholders who we think they're very important to help us achieve our objectives. Number one stakeholder is CAG. So it's very important part of stakeholders, very important. And he has been a wonderful partner. He has been a wonderful stakeholder to us. And he's a stakeholder whom, in fact, technically, the one who is supplying us with every information that we need. We may find some other information outside there, but their report has been rich enough, very technical, well articulated, well researched, well documented, and it's fairly presented. So we depend on their reports to a large extent. And also we have the extra office, they're the ones who are keeping out the register of government assets. And they are very important to us. So we've been engaging with them, and they're always providing us with additional information to make sure that we are connecting now to what is going on the side of the government. But also, we use media. The media is very important. And our chair, and sometimes she delegates this to some of the members, every after trying to explain the business of the day. If there was an hearing session that we had conducted, of which might attract interest of the public, especially on those representatives, we are doing our work. The questions that they're asking on the street, they are the ones actually asked to the so that we can also hear from all the ministries. We cover government, all them independent, rescue and fire, like bodies. So we cover them, parastotals, like pension funds, you know, these state-owned enterprises that I've spoken about, taking care of people, supplemented by writings. Thereafter, sees observation to get information. Essentially, the G report, that's number one, but also the PAC response, the directives.
And then you launch. I sincerely apologize. I call the four panelists to come forward. The PAC chairperson of Libya, Auditor General of Uganda, Minister Tanzania and Zanzibar, I think it's Tanzania Revenue Authority, and the chairperson, Honorable Mwambazi. May I also be assisted with one extra chair if it's possible? Also be assisted with one extra chair if it's possible, because I don't think we'll have enough. You can take it. If all of you. Thank you very much. I've made sure that I negotiate time, so we've already about time. They said they'll take about 5 minutes each, so that. Our topic here now is let me first hand over
Constitution Article 100, water and natural resources, and within the territory. Together with that, we have also another provision of Article 6 here to acquire, own, and dispose of all forms of or legally prohibit or regulate as it deems expedient to acquire property who are not citizens. That together also the foreigner buys land owned majority by a Namibian citizen. This clearly states that in my opinion, I think that is what should brought a very big question to us. The big question, however, is whether our Mining Act is addressing the problem of development negotiations of Namibia adequately as a local owner to ensure shareholding for the state. Now, when it comes to public, it's been established by law and operating under that law. On taxation and corporate social investment, the Office of the Auditor General does following audit the activities of audit institutions. That is performance audit, financial audits, environmental audit, compliance audits, information systems audits. These audits, Ministry of Finance and refer to PAC. Such reports and based Office of the Auditor General and its sites to either call Office of the Auditor General table in 2011 mining tax collections in Namibia. This report indicated, however, a follow-up performance audit on this tax collection. On transaction and capitalization, we know cross-border transactions between 2 minutes. You took one. Fairly priced and addressing policy documents when submitting tax returns. We need to establish clear cooperation guidelines and the tax authority of Namibia to our government. On the accuracy of production volumes declared by the mining sector, we do as a nation have a system to check for inconsistencies in the declaration of production volumes and whether investigated. All extractive industries are, however, foreign-owned by private individuals or corporates, and they are illicit financial flows which can influence the economy and the developmental growth of the country. On the assessed losses, online will not pay, have to pay taxable income for many years. Every day they are saying that they don't make an income in that tax. That in itself is not a good thing. On the export processing or was risk, where we were according certain mines or companies status, like for example Areva. Areva is a French state-owned mining company, but it has been investing for several times. That in itself is telling us a first world country, in my opinion, good. Mine rehabilitation. The problem with mine rehabilitations is that we have a system where our authorities are sitting on this trust of the mine rehabilitation trust, and just to make sure that the monies for that purposes are rightly used. In conclusion, I make an opinion and request Sadcopac that it or their companies with extracting boost the economy of countries in Africa to improve or eradicate, not eradicate or improve, and thus to eradicate poverty in the first instance, and secondly, eradicate.
Yes, because the panel was to have a discussion, and General of is done. Please, may I ask that this network Africa be ready? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and the colleague panelists, distinguished. Chair, I think the timing should start when I have started. Chair, that's the lineup, but Chair and colleagues, as you know that for NSI to do the audit work, it must have mandate. And our mandate as size are entrenched in the national constitutions and also sometimes in the enabling audit acts or audit laws and other pronouncements. In extractive industries, I will be discussing it from the perspective of SAI Uganda. In Uganda, the extractive industries, we look at two major subsectors. That is the oil and gas subsector and also the mining subsector. So this is what we refer to as extractive industries. So a number of audits we do. The first audit is the financial audit, and especially these are to do with institutions that are charged with management of extractive industries, like the ministries, debtors, and the government companies, and also more as Uganda as a country, not with financial audit. But however, you are well know that extractive industries is about service delivery. As countries, we must ensure that the revenue generated from extractive industries are geared at the livelihood of the citizens. And as a result, we carry a number of performance audits under the extractive industry to ensure that. In addition to performance audits, we also carry out compliance audits, and these are more to do with checking whether the players are compliant with the laws and regulations embedded in the governance of those institutions. However, we all know that extractive industries, they are what we call a wind flow of revenues, and as a result, sometimes if the controls are not very well followed or implemented, some criminality cases are bound to happen. And as Uganda, we have also prepared ourselves to carrying out forensic audits as far as the extractive revenues are concerned, and be able to take the culprits to court in that regard. But for the purpose of this workshop, allow me, Chair and colleagues, to expound more on what we call cost recovery audits, or what we call production sharing contracts, which was the major discussion of this workshop as far as auditing is concerned. But in Uganda, we call them production sharing agreements. So in this cost recovery audit, as a SAI, we are concerned with the investments made by multinational companies, and these investments under the production sharing agreement, the government does not put in the capital monies, but they allow the multinationals to invest and then recoup their costly oil, and after that, then they can share the oil revenues. But under this cost recovery audit under Uganda, the Auditor General is in charge of allowing or disallowing costs that will be eligible for recovery by the multinational. But the game changer in the extractive industry, as the size now and also as the parliamentary oversight committees, you must consider is that what we are calling the independent administrator's report under the extractive industry transparency international standards. Countries are voluntarily encouraged to join the EITI community. And under this EITI community, the participating entities, that is multinationals and government and other private companies, are supposed to publish what they receive and what they pay. And that publication is supposed to be audited, what we call the independent administrator. And now, as SAI Uganda, we have taken this lead in the continent, and I think with this SAI Ghana, of auditing this independent administrator's report under the standards and giving assurance to the stakeholders on how the industry is faring. I will not go into the legal framework, but what I'm saying that for us to enable auditing and also to have transparency and accountability in the extractive industry, there must be a very strong and rich policies and legal framework in the country. In addition, we must also have as size to identify who are the key stakeholders of our audit work and our audit reports, and I have enumerated some of them, but I will talk about the Parliament. As you have heard from most of the speakers, the size are their work is to audit and report to Parliament. So our first client or stakeholder is really the Parliament to act on our audit observations and recommendations. But I want also to deal with the last one, the international communities. Extractive industries now are globally a concern of everyone. And as the supreme audit institutions, we must also be preparing ourselves to ensure that expectations from the international communities are observed. So we have to participate in that. I wouldn't go much into the value chain of the extractive industry, but as all we know that it comes from the upstream, midstream, and the downstream. But as auditors, we must be concerned of all the risks that present themselves under that value chain. I would want also to say this, Chair, if you allow me just 1 minute, that in the extractive industry, the mining subsector has not been given the much attention it deserves in the continent, and especially as a country, the legislation and the framework is very weak in the mining sector. So that's an area we have to involve ourselves as size and also the parliamentarians and the governments. But in Uganda, we are moving the mining industry also from just mere licensing to also production sharing agreement mechanism, such that we have proper accountability and transparency. In the interest of time, Chair, allow me to stop here. I think the slide will be shared with the other delegates. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. I assume I have very few minutes, so I'm going to utilize them very well. Firstly, I want to mention that the Tax Justice Network Africa hosts a caucus of parliamentarians, members of parliament, concerned with the aspect of illicit financial flows. Currently, we have a membership of over 4,875 members of parliament across the African continent. We have members, we had initial members from 13 states, and we've seen 236 members. We've grown in membership, and we have 41 African countries with MPs, members of parliament, joining the caucus and pushing motions benefiting from the capacity building on illicit financial flows and trade. I'll be quick to mention that Tax Justice Network Africa looks at the issue of illicit financial flows both from what is within the legislation and what is outside the legislation. We look at it from what is defined by law and what we see as immoral. So as you know, not all illicit financial flows as per definition from the high-level Mbeki panel are illegal, but we try to challenge even the aggressive tax avoidance that's fueled by the private sector in audit that provides this tax support. So looking at the entire chain, we basically look through tax planning strategies that are used in different countries to tax evasion methods that are being used. And in doing that, we provide advice around transfer pricing rules, around basic amendments to legislation that members of parliament need to push for in order to fight illicit financial flows. Of course, we do know that the common narrative is that for every $1 that enters the African continent loses $2. And we try to challenge that narrative by fighting the very basis of illicit financial flows from the taxation angle, which comprises 70%. I'm sure we've heard from previous speakers some of the base eroding methods that are consistently used by countries, and this is essentially what we try to fight. There are two common methods of measuring illicit financial flows. The first is the top-down approach. And for the top-down approach, we basically look at the aggregates within the countries. So we notice that there are countries, for instance, that have huge trade volumes but very little revenue coming in terms of tax. So we try to probe these statistics and try to develop these estimates of just how much potential revenue is being lost. The bottom-up approaches which are being pushed by the UNC Trade and Development Agency is more common these days because it basically reflects upon the basic, the micro transfer pricing methods, the micro ways in which countries lose out on revenue and make estimations on how much this revenue is being lost. I won't go into details on legislation, but I want to talk about generally from the SADC region. What we've noticed is, firstly, there are some countries that lack basic legislation around issues of illicit financial flows and transfer pricing. So if you do not regulate companies on the way they can interact with each other within a group, companies are likely going to trade amongst themselves, and if there's no regulation that's guiding how they trade amongst themselves, they'll basically inflate the cost of production and reduce on the cost of sales. Basic example, for intangibles, if you're producing a product that has a secret formula, or maybe there's some intellectual property, you can put whatever value you have on that intellectual property and essentially make your cost of production really high and go away without paying tax. We notice a lack of expertise in some of the revenue administrations that need to deal with transfer pricing, and in some cases, the expertise is there, but there's no dedicated unit that needs to look at the aspect of combating these illicit financial flows. We recommend Tax Inspectors Without Borders program, for instance, that can come in and help auditors in countries look at specific case issues and look at the law that's in country and see if these transactions were being done within the law. Access to information is quite big. We heard from the previous speaker through the EITI, of course, now we're seeing more beneficial ownership disclosures, but we need to move beyond this and also have some automatic exchange of information system that allows countries to share information around taxes to verify whether one has done their tax payment rightly. So there are quite a number of tax avoidance schemes and quite a number of even self-inflicted things that need to be probed within the SADC region. And in the SADC region, we see a number of double taxation treaties which are enabling treaty shopping. So for instance, myself, I'm a Zambian. If I want to invest in Zambia, I would probably go and study the tax treaties that are in Zambia, pick on the best tax treaty that will help me avoid tax, route my investments through the UK, United Kingdom, or France, for instance, invest in Zambia, avoid paying tax because I supposedly have my company registered there and a related party registered in Zambia. I can also route my investments through tax havens because the global financial architecture is structured in such a way that we have low tax jurisdictions and high tax jurisdictions. So companies want to make their profits in low tax jurisdictions, while make their losses in high tax jurisdictions, which happen to be majority of African countries. Tax incentives need to be probed. Most of the times we give over generous tax incentives. If these are not probed, they are enablers to illicit financial flows in the sense that companies will work towards exploiting these. Thin capitalization rules, very important as well. Their projects through borrowing than equity, that once they're paying back, once they're paying the interest on the borrowing, they really do not need to pay their taxes. So this is one of the main. What we've noticed in the SADC region is that in as much as most countries have put in debt to equity ratio limitations in the legislation, there's indeed no follow-up that's done to probe if companies are within that. Poorly negotiated contracts is also something that's making us lose quite significant revenue, and I think this is something that needs to be probed. I'll end here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now have presentations from the Ministry of Finance first. Immediately after that will be followed by Mr. Mayogoro from the Tanzania Revenue Authority. Yes.
And in terms of actually anti-money laundering, because as we know, the illicit proceeds at the end of the day, they are integrated into the financial and economic system. Perpetrators always want to clean the money, to launder the money, to make the money seem that they are legal and they integrate it into the system. So I'll describe briefly what we have done in terms of enhancing AML CFT, that is anti-money laundering and counterterrorism. The efforts which actually we joined the global efforts in terms of conventions and resolutions by the United Nations, the FATF, which is Financial Action Task Force, a standard set in terms of anti-money laundering, counter-financing of terrorism, and prevention financing. We have enacted laws in Tanzania in terms of Anti-Money Laundering Act and the Anti-Money Laundering and Proceed of Crimes Act in Zanzibar, and other laws like the for the prohibition of terrorism and the other laws. But the intention here is to create, to make the money laundering as a criminal offense, terrorism as a criminal offense, and also to give responsibilities to the various institutions, in terms of government institutions, in terms of the private sector. Government institutions, for example, the regulators, like the central bank, like the capital markets and whatnot, so that they can inspect the players in the industry in anti-money laundering requirements and responsibilities. And the important thing here also is that in a chain of anti-money laundering and fighting and combating terrorism, financing, the private sector is very important, because the private sector, we call them the gatekeepers. They have been given, or they've been signed by the laws to make CDD. That is to know the customer whom they are dealing with, and to report the suspicious transactions when they see that the customer is not in line with what has been recorded when the CDD, or what has been onboarded when the CDD was done. The suspicious transactions are reported to the FIU, and the FIU, as you know, the FIU Tanzania is administrative. What it does is analyze and disseminate to law enforcement for investigation. In terms of other efforts which have been done is risk assessments. We have done a number of risk assessments in terms of MLCFT, and they have been reviewed. What we have realized that corruption is number one generator of illicit proceeds, followed by tax evasion, followed by illicit proceeds from the natural resources and whatnot. You have to understand here that when there is a corruption, other crimes will follow, because it means the strength to fight the crimes, it's weakened by corruption. So the effort has been done. The meaning of doing the risk assessment is to see where the risks are and to enhance resources in fighting those risks. And what you realize in the risk assessment also is that the money which is generated from corruption, tax evasion, abuse of natural resources and whatnot, it is taken to the real estate for investment. And these are the vulnerable areas, the real estate, the mining. According to the study, we saw that because of the cash economy, because of the informal sector of the economy, it's easy to invest in the real estate because there are no gatekeepers who have been given the responsibility to do the know your customer, the identification and reporting the STR. What has been done so far, where the Ministry of Lands has assigned a regulator in the ministry to supervise the real estate agents. So whenever one wants to invest in real estate in terms of the construction, in terms of buying land, through the agents, through their lawyers, through whoever, they have to provide their identification, source of fund. If there is any suspicious, knowingly or unknowingly, it has to be reported to FIU and further for investigation. That is curbing according to what we found in the study. Another efforts which have been done, as you know, apart from establishment of FIU, is giving the responsibilities and the powers and the actual resources for the investigators and prosecutors to do what we call a parallel financial investigation. As you know, where the intention of many crimes is to gain illicit proceeds, as we are studying here. But according to studies which have been done, it is only the predicate offense, it is only the corruption, it is only the poaching, it is only the fake minerals which are investigated and prosecuted. But the illicit proceeds generated from those crimes, in most cases, are left not investigated. And at the end of the day, we give the message that crime does not pay. We know that most are members of the East and Southern Africa Anti-Money Laundering Group. And according to the second round of initial evaluation which has been done, some of them are coming out, but almost all will go. That is review.
But here comes we have to start